everyone. My name is Kendra James, and I'm the managing editor of StarTrek.com. I feel really lucky. We did this panel back at San Diego Comic-Con, and now we're here again at New York Comic-Con with all the Starfleet ladies, a panel about the women who are in Star Trek novels and the women who write them and help get them out into the world. So I'm really thrilled to be here with 4 other panelists who are now going to introduce themselves for you guys.
Hi, I'm Una McCormack. I write Star Trek novels, and in particular, relevant to the topic, I've written a novel, Way to the Stars, about Tilly from Discovery. And I have a book coming out very soon called The Autobiography of Catherine Janeway.
Cassandra, why don't you go next?
All right, I'm Cassandra Rose Clarke, and I'm also a novelist, and I am writing a Star Trek novel, Star Trek TNG novel that centers Deanna Troi and Dr. Crusher, called The Shadows Have Offended. I think I can reveal that. And I'm really excited to be here.
And welcome to Swapna.
I am Swapna Krishna. I am not a novelist, but I am I write about Star Trek professionally. I covered Discovery at Sci-Fi. I covered recap Star Trek Picard at StarTrek.com, and I'm currently recapping Lower Decks at Vulture. So I'm kind of a professional fan.
And last but not least, Lauren.
Hey, I'm Lauren Jackson. I'm the publicity and marketing manager at Saga Press and Gallery Books, and I do marketing and publicity for the Star Trek novels, and I've been a Trekkie since as long as I can remember.
It's good to see everyone again. We were together first in July, like I said, for San Diego Comic-Con, and I feel like the world, it's only been like 2 or 3 months, but everything has changed so much already, even though, as you see, we are in exactly the same places as we were the last time. So if you watched our last panel, you'll know it was like kind of loose, and I wanted to keep that same energy this time. So my first question is a little abstract. We at StarTrek.com, we publish a lot of fan writing, and a lot of the pitches that I've gotten in recently are people who are watching Star Trek series for the first time, and the 2 most popular ones that people are watching right now are Voyager and Deep Space Nine. And I want to focus on Voyager for a second because people seem to be really connecting with the isolation that Voyager and its crew faced by being stuck in the Delta Quadrant. And I was wondering if, 2-pronged question, if you guys find yourself gravitating towards Voyager and those themes of isolation right now in your writing or just in your Star Trek fandom in general. And also, how has this whole 6 months staying inside affected the way you're writing and what you're choosing to write?
Well, I have quite a small child, so I guess my primary constraints have been just juggling a 6-year-old and homeschooling her and trying to find hours in the day to actually put down words on a page and just get books delivered roughly on time. But I think all those things have always been very important to me to write into the science fiction. The late, great Joanna Russ said that you don't see many women in science fiction. You see a lot of images of women in science fiction. And she thought a real giveaway for whether or not you saw women, actual women as opposed to fantasy women, was whether or not someone talked about the childcare. So I always try and put that, and not just childcare, but the labour of care and care work in general. I try and work that into my science fiction novels always, and particularly with Star Trek as well. I mean, the big deal about Next Gen was that, there was a creche, DS9, there was a school. It's really important, I think, to kind of address the whole of a civilization in your science fiction. So that's what I've been trying to do. Let's see how well it's turned out.
And I want everyone to answer this question, but I quickly just want to go back to Una for a second. You talk about care and the effort that takes. I think it's really interesting that you've been working on a Janeway novel, or at least maybe not writing it, but at least edits and getting it out there during this. And so much of her work was obviously like getting her crew home and making sure that she was able to take care of them. And it's not childcare. And she also did it in a way that wasn't necessarily a traditional like maternal coding, which I think is really interesting right now.
Yeah, she kind of mediates between this sort of all mother, doesn't she? And at the same time, she is the boss, and she is where it stops, where the buck stops. So she has to remain authoritative. She has to remain the chain of command. So really interesting to juggle that. How interesting that people have turned to Voyager in the middle of this. I think you're entirely right. It's about isolation. Yeah.
And anyone else want to jump in for that first question?
I'm gonna quickly jump in.
Oh,
Go ahead. No, Lauren,
you go
ahead.
first.
we'll go with Swapna.
I was gonna say, I actually just started a Voyager rewatch like 2 weeks ago, so it is very relevant, I think, and I'm finding a lot more. I think I'm finding a lot more in there than I did. And I think that's an amazing thing about Star Trek. It's so big and versatile, and like just the entire franchise. Every time I rewatch a series, I find something new, something more relevant. I find characters I sympathize with more, or stories I didn't quite understand, and I have a better understanding of now. And I think that's a big thing for this Voyager rewatch. I'm understanding the isolation, I think, in a way that I never have before.
Yeah, so Voyager was the first Star Trek series that I watched as a kid, and that's sort of what was my springboard into, the rest is history at this point. And I don't know, Janeway is my favorite captain still, and I think it is because she faced such a unique challenge, and I do think that Cisco did as well, but she in particular, because she had to take care of this crew and to maintain the standards of the Starfleet, of their institution, but so far away and without any sort of she had no oversight either. So it's sort of like she had so much pressure on her as a captain, but at the same time, she was the only one there taking care of these people. And I don't know, I find that really interesting, and I think now that's sort of a position that everybody is in, because I have 2 cats, those are my children at this point, but but like I think we all feel this sort of sense of responsibility to take care of other people and to take care of like our loved ones, and maybe that's why it's resonating so strongly. I personally, and I'm not going to derail this yet, but I personally have rewatched DS9 I think 4 times since this all started, because it's hitting so close to home for me because of how political it is. But I think Voyager hits more of that emotional chord for me at this point. So
yeah. And Cassandra, did you have anything?
I'm not sure I have anything to really add. Like Lauren, I live with 2 cats, so I'm very isolated, and so I definitely can see how there is an appeal in watching a Star Trek series where they're isolated together, right? Yes, they're away from the Federation and they're away from everything, but they have the crew and they're all in that together. And I think that's something that really resonates with me as somebody who lives alone and gets most of my social interaction through Zoom calls, right? So the idea of like, oh, what would it be like to be isolated, but isolated on a ship where I still have this crew and this family to kind of interact with, and I think there's something really that's something that's really appealing about it to me as somebody who's isolating by myself.
Yeah, I think Deep Space Nine is a show that I go back to often for like comfort, like even with all the dark stuff that goes on that show, that is my comfort food show. Whereas watching Voyager, when I did my first rewatch in college, and that was my first rewatch since it had originally aired, I really got more out of it, especially from the characters of Janeway, Seven, and B'Elanna than I think that I had been ready to take out when it was airing. And watching it right now, I mean, sometimes I'll just throw on a random episode just to even show my boyfriend. And it's nice to be reminded that even in a situation like that, life continues to go on. And I think that as we are seeing professional women going through the crises right now of really having to balance work and care, it's just nice to see that in the midst of disaster on Voyager, life is going on. They're still having fun. They're still like running. They're still having entertainment in the holodeck. Several babies are being born. People are getting married, and I just think that that's something that's so helpful.
They're both about the long haul, aren't they? DS9 and Voyager. They're both about, you've just got to dig in because it's going to take longer than months. This is going to take years. Yeah. So you got to keep on digging. And like you say, find a kind of normality to let those really critical things survive and flourish, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Do you guys have any comfort episodes that you guys have been going to, specifically featuring some of the women characters from the series that you've been going to watch during this time?
Barge of the Dead from Voyager is one of my like go-to comfort watches because it's just on so many levels. And if for anyone unfamiliar with it, it's the episode where B'Elanna thinks her mother has been denied and has died back in the Alpha Quadrant and has been denied entrance to Stova Core. And she has to basically, and it's because of B'Elanna's dishonor, so it's up to B'Elanna to quote unquote, I guess, save her and help her into Stova Core. But the entire episode has this kind of almost like dreamy, ethereal quality. It's hard to, and she doesn't know even at the end of the episode like what's real and what's not. But it's just such an episode of connection and like just like human connection and people just like believing in each other and trusting each other. Like the scene where she just is like, I know this doesn't make any sense, but you have to believe me. And I know this might kill me, but you have to let me do this. And there's this amazing scene between her and Janeway, which is a relationship I really wish had been explored more over the course of the series because it's such a good one. And then at the end where like she just gives, like B'Elanna is not the most emotional character, but she gives Captain Janeway this just very genuine hug. Like, oh God, that episode gets me. Like I'm gonna start like tearing up. Oh my God, that's such a comfort watch for me.
Mine is Tacking into the Wind, which is Deep Space Nine episode, which is it's actually half of Tacking into the Wind. I'm kind of fast forward through the Klingon bits, but there's a whole bit sort of set on Cardassia with Damar and Garrick and Odo and Kira. And what you've basically got is a civilization collapsing around you. Sound familiar? And then these people kind of digging extremely deep to not murder the people immediately around them that they're stuck with, but trying to find a way to accommodate them and work with them. And at the center of this, I think you've got the fantastic Kira Nerys, who just never, ever, ever gives up. As long as there's kind of evil to fight, Kira Nerys will be out there throwing the first punch. And I take a lot of comfort from the existence of Kira Nerys in these times. Though actually what I've been watching is, I've gone right back to the beginning. I've been watching the original series again, which feels like messages from a less complicated time. So it's been very relaxing.
Yeah, it's funny. I was trying to find the name of the particular episode that I'm thinking of, but it's I have three. The first one is in Voyager is when 7 of 9 there's some sort of virus going around and only she and the doctor are awake and able to try and save the ship. And it's this sort of like, it's not really comforting, but I enjoy what it explores, which is like the nature of reality and can you trust yourself and talk about isolation. I mean, she's totally alone. And there's this like one particular line of dialogue, and I was rewatching this I think in like March or April, right when everything kind of started to explode. And she says something like, "I will adapt." I can't remember the exact line, but I remember "I will adapt." And I was just like, I'm going to tear up now too. I was like, that's what we all need to do. Like, that's what we all need to do. It was really inspiring to see that, I think, especially from a character like Seven, who sort of in the same way as B'Elanna doesn't express emotion. I wonder why. You know, that episode it really sticks out to me. And then the other one is Unimatrix Zero, which is in the last season, and that's when, you know, she kind of finds that world where all of the Borg are going to escape. You know, when they're regenerating, they go to this like dream world, I guess, and she falls in love. And you know, she tries to save the Borg with Janeway. I find that one to be so compelling too. And then of course Kira Nerys. I mean, oh god, what was the episode? The episode where she sees what her mother was doing during the Cardassian
Wrongs darker
occupation.
than or death, I think.
Death
is
or
it?
Night. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's what it's, yeah. And she, you know, it's this really, I don't know, a really interesting dynamic of like, what, you know, what are war crimes? What does it mean to survive? You know, it's a very like really interesting exploration of this morally gray area that I don't think a lot of Star Trek episodes actually touch upon that strongly. Like, I'm doing this thing that is maybe objectively bad, but subjectively I'm doing it to survive through this terrible time. And I think that those are really interesting explorations of the ladies of Star Trek.
Yeah. And then Cassandra, did you have any comfort episodes?
So I don't really do comfort episodes because the way I tend to watch Star Trek is because I watch it on streaming, that I just like put it on at the beginning of the series, whatever series I'm watching, and I just let it run through. And so every time I feel like watching it again, I just pop back to where I was. But I will say, like, the episodes that I think I find the most comforting in general are the ones that have a lot of humor in them. You know, and I really enjoy, I keep thinking of the DS9 episode where they go back in time to the original series, and they're wearing all the like original series outfits.
Trials and tribulations. Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff is so delightful to me. I really like the TNG episode where they get kidnapped, where the two Troy women get kidnapped by a Ferengi, and then Picard has to recite Shakespeare to get them back. Like the way it just is like so over the top and ridiculous. Those are the kind of episodes that I think are the most kind of comforting to me, because they're sort of their escapism, and they're fun, and they are easily memeable, and there's just something about that I just find reassuring.
Yeah, I think humor is really important right now, and like, while obviously we wish things were like normal, I think Lower Decks, at least it premiered during a good period, because people, or Trekkies I should say, or people who wanted something to laugh, like Lower Decks was perfect for that. And I think one of the really nice things about that show in particular is it lends humor to women, which obviously is still something that doesn't always happen, and it lends it to them in a non-deprecating way. And the humor on Lower Decks is just, it's not sort of the more dry, sarcastic wit you'll often get from Star Trek, which is always really fun, but this is more actual, just like laugh out loud gag humor. And I'm wondering if you have watched Lower Decks. If you haven't, that's totally fine. If that has been a source of inspiration for any writing that you are doing, or writing that you want to do. Like, have any of the women on Lower Decks stood out to you?
Guys, I'm in the UK, so...
Oh no!
But it's fine.
Fair.
Go on.
I'm so sorry. It's very good.
It's very good.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll just sit here and watch the Orville again.
Oh god, can't they do you a favor? It's like, come on, they have to send you something. Oh my god.
Oh, it's fine. I don't mind.
You know what? Let me talk to John Gunsitters later.
Go ahead.
You've been watching it.
It's so funny. It's just so funny, and it's like,
Looks great.
Kendra, it's like the show we need right now, like you said. And but like, I do think one of the things I love about it, and one of the things I've I am recapping it, so obviously in that way it definitely inspires my writing. But I think also just in writing fiction, I have trouble. Humor is hard for me to write, and the kindness and warmth of a lot of this humor, like it is really hard to thread that needle of like laughing at something absurd in Star Trek, but it's not making fun. Like, do you know what I mean? It's a really tricky needle. It threads, but it's a kind, warm, inclusive humor, not like, haha, suckers. Like, I just really, I respect that a lot, and it's hard to do. And I think the way Mariner is written is just like, she's my hero. And I would love to be Mariner, but I am not a Mariner.
Yeah, I agree. I love Lower Decks. I've been watching it like every Thursday. I'm like, oh, it's Lower Decks Day, and I'm like excited about it. But I agree with what Swapna was saying. I was really genuinely kind of shocked at how they were able to make it funny and make it feel like Star Trek, and to have that like just that sort of comforting kindness aspect. While still just having all this like wacky humor that does, even I can kind of even see that Rick and Morty like influence, but like Rick and Morty is so nihilistic and dark, and so it's like a non-nihilistic, non-dark Rick and Morty, and I just love it, and it's definitely kind of my favorite Star Trek right now, I gotta be honest. And I agree, I'm the same way about with Mariner. Like I would love to be Mariner, but I know I'm a Boimler, like a girl Boimler, and I just have to accept that.
God, yeah, I'm upset because so I just started grad school, so I'm like, I feel like I'm a month behind everybody else as far as like consuming pop culture goes. And I did actually watch, I think I watched the first episode of it, and I am a huge Rick and Morty fan, like enormous Rick and Morty fan. Like I tried to get the Szechuan sauce situation, like it was crazy. But so I could see the influence in sort of that like snappy back and forth dialogue. And like Cassandra was saying, it's not nihilistic at all. It has that Starfleet optimism. And I loved Mariner. Like I fell in love with Mariner in the first episode. And I think I'm more Mariner than some of the other characters. I'm not like tooting my own horn, but I have a little bit of a reputation of just like kind of, doing first and then apologizing later. So I appreciate that vibe, and I appreciate how much she bucks the system, because I don't know if we had, I think Kira Nerys was probably the closest, and maybe Ro Laren. So like, the those two kind of were a little bit more of like bucking the system and doing things their way, but they also that came from trauma. And I think with Mariner, and I might not know something that already happened, but I think with Mariner it's much more organic, and it's just part of her personality, and she's human, so there is that element of like, okay, I can relate to her a little bit more. I don't know. So yeah. I love it. I love it so far. I love that it's Rick and Morty-ish, but also its own thing entirely.
Yeah. So I'm going to be real. My clock just jumped from 27 minutes to 4 minutes.
I just saw that.
So I want to make sure that I get this last question in, because as we're talking about Mariner and then other new women from Lower Decks like Tendi, I want to ask you guys, those of you who are writing Trek, and then also Swapna, you're not writing novels, but who knows what I asked this question at the end of the Comic-Con panel, but the world changes. What are your dream projects? What women are you dreaming of writing about in the Star Trek universe? And then Lauren, even for you, who do you want to see more of? Like, what are you looking for as you put more of these books out?
Oh God. Should I start?
Oh yeah, you can start.
Because my answer is going to be short.
Then we'll know what to pitch to you, Lauren.
Yes, exactly. Although I had no power whatsoever. But yeah, that's fine. I would love to read something. I would love to read more about Ro Laren.
Amazing.
That's my simple answer.
Cassandra?
Yeah, so this is super embarrassing, and because I forgot her name, and I don't want to like make my keyboard clack to look it up. But Worf's the mother of Alexander.
Palar.
Kalar,
Right.
yes, thank you. She's one of my favorite characters in TNG, and I would love to be able to explore her in more depth because I just found her a really fascinating character. And honestly, I would love to write Lower Decks anything because it's so delightful, and I really do love those characters too.
That's a great answer because I'm not sure I've thought about Alexandra's mother ever.
Yeah.
So like that, that's really great. Swapna.
My answer and last time at the same time are the same. B'Elanna Torres. I love her. I wish she was explored more on screen, but if not, in a novel.
And then Una.
Oh God! Well, I've been so spoiled already. I've kind of said I want to do this, and people have gone, "Yeah, you do that." And so I think I would have to go for my namesake number one, and write about Una. So I'd quite like to give her a shot. Yeah.
I mean, one has to hope that with like Strange New Worlds coming out, maybe you will actually get that opportunity one day. We can all cross our fingers for you.
That'd be really good fun. Una by Una.
Yeah. I mean,
love that.
Yeah, the cover potential alone on that is great.
I absolutely love that. Oh, I have one more. And I think this was my answer during San Diego, but Ariam from Star Trek Discovery.
Mhm.
Love her.
Really good character. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to do this because I forgot to do it last time. As we're coming to our close, can you guys let fans know where they can find you? Where you want to be found, I think is the better question.
You can find me on Twitter at Una McCormack. I've got on my moral high horse recently, and I've deleted my Facebook account, but not a very high horse because I'm still on Twitter. But you can find me there, and my website as well is unamccormack.co.uk.
Cassandra.
Instagram is probably the best one for me at Cassandra Rose Clarke. I'm on Twitter as well. My Twitter name is kind of a pun, so it's at CRC, but you really need to search for my name because it's I have to spell it out. But yeah, my website Cassandra Rose Clarke has links to all my social media, so that's kind of the best way to get to them.
Perfect. Swapna.
I'm write a lot all over the internet, so my Twitter account at @skrishna is definitely the easiest way.
And Lauren.
If you want to find me, you can just find some of my weird rants on Twitter, Instagram, also known as LJ on both.
Cool. And as for me, you can find stuff that I've edited at StarTrek.com, obviously, each day. And I can be found on Twitter at Kendra James with an _. And yeah, so that's that. And that's our panel for today. All the Starfleet ladies, thanks guys for joining us again. And I'm glad that it went over with everyone so well last time, that they wanted to do it again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kendra.
Of course.
Thank you. This is great.
Yes. Like we said last time,
This
once
is
a month.
great.
We should just be doing it once a month.
Yeah, we should. Why
Yeah.
not? Absolutely.
I can
We
make it
should do it
happen.
as
I've
a-
been doing monthly saga salons, so let's just all get together once a month and do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Do a book. We should do a book club or something, shouldn't we? Just kind of set a text, and
Yeah.
people could come along, and you
Do
know,
that.
we
Oh
could
my god.
chat, and they could join in the Q&A or something. That would keep us all going.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Or when you're all watching Lower Decks, I could just zoom in, and you could kind of hold a camera
Oh
up.
my God. I'm gonna email someone. I'm going to.
You
I
need
feel
to
so
get
bad.
it. It's unfair.
Yeah.